So Elsje, I don't know if I should say much more about you. She's been involved heavily with this project. She just told me that it's more than 25 years, but at Stellenbosch for the last decade or so they've been involved. But it's also a very recent project because they've just about built the first commercial facility. So this is very much happening now. It's a commercial facility, so these guys are businessmen, they want to make money. So think about along those lines, what are the economics, what are the financial implications also of this? But we look forward to listening to you. Thank you. So about 40 minutes. Again, if there's any questions during the presentation, you're more than welcome to.
Yes, please, interactive, if there's anything that you want to clarify, just ask me. I'm an animal scientist, not an economist. And the people who funded the project up to now and who's busy commercializing it, they are of course very clever in the economics and stuff like that. So if there's any questions which I can't answer, then I can refer you to them. I started with this project about 25 years ago. Yeah, it's about 25 years ago. My main drive, I say I was born in the middle of Namibia, in the middle of a drought, so my issue was water. Literally water, because I just, I saw my grandfather had to shoot his cattle because there wasn't water. So that sort of stuck in the little brain, and I had an issue with water ever since. And coming to groundfall sites and stuff like that, you see rain coming down, all of a sudden there's rain. When you come to the Republic, you come across the border, there's rain. And there's funny wood stuff coming from above. And then you see these groundfall sites and you see this rubbish leaching into our groundwater, and our rivers are contaminated, and you can't swim and you can't drink the water, and all of that made me think that there must be a way to get this waste away. So I had this waste and this water issue which was nagging me, and I was looking for ways to get rid of the waste faster and cleaning it up. That was where I started about 25 years ago, and we worked with algae, and we worked with earthworms, and we worked with bacteria, and we worked with fungi, and we worked with everything, and we got stuck on the insects. And that was about in 1994 when we got stuck on the insects. Then we had the whole political turnaround in South Africa, and all our research funds were cut off. We didn't have any research funds, and I resigned from the ARC and I went into consultancy. And this pet project, I tried to keep it alive, but it was a very expensive project. And in 2005, I shelved it. I said to my husband, okay, we buried the bugs, it's gone, it's that. And then I got offered a position here in Stellenbosch, and we moved here. And I came here on the 10th of June, and on the 15th of June, I got a call from Tulbagh. And they said to me, they started this insect project, and would I please come down from Pretoria and consult them on it? I said, just wait a minute, I'll be there in 2 hours. And that's where this whole thing came. And the person on that side was Jason Drew, and he was a visionary. He had a thing about fish meal, about overfishing the seas. So he didn't have the water issue. He comes from Britain, apparently there's sufficient water there. So he had a problem with protein. He had a problem with people fishing, and people overfishing and overutilizing the resources that we have. And so that was his drive. The two of us got together, and a colleague of his, who was actually a film producer, he just said, all this waste accumulating and everyone just using up everything, it just doesn't make sense to him. And he's just on a different planet altogether. So we got together here at Animal Sciences, and that's where the project was born, on the 28th of January 2008. That's it. That's the day. And it was my birthday, that's why I remember it. And we started there. The whole project started with funding of 130,000 Rand for that first project. And currently the research funds on this project runs at about between 6 and 8 million a year. So it's substantial. It's funded from various places all over the globe. And we've had Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation money. We've had money from our local government, Centre of Excellence, TRIP money, Toekoms money, everywhere. So it's not just us, the whole world is catching on to the whole idea, and we are very fortunate in saying that at this stage we are the world leaders. We started early, and we are ahead, and we're trying to stay ahead at this stage. So insects as feed and food. The human issue, we all know that we are going to be a hell of a lot of people in a very short time. At this stage we need about 500 million kilos of protein almost 1 billion kilos of carbohydrates, and 26 billion liters of water per day to feed the people. The food issue, we produce about 4 billion tons of crops. We produce broilers, goats, beef, cattle, pigs and horses. It looks like bacterial counts. It doesn't look like animal numbers. It's scary numbers. It's really scary numbers. And what you must contemplate, what you must think of is all of this isn't utilized just as is. With the crops, there's waste. When we look at the waste, half of what we produce in terms of crop is not eaten. And it's not because it's mostly cosmetics. In Europe and in England, a lot of the food gets thrown away because of cosmetics. You know, the cucumber isn't like this, it's like this, so we don't eat it. So the pear isn't like this, it's like this, so we don't eat it. So the orange has got a little spot, we don't eat it, so it all gets chucked. So about half of what we produce get thrown away. If we look at animal manure, that's a lot. Human fecal matter. I heard someone say the word vegetarian just now. I had a very funny experience when I was in England about 3 weeks ago. It was summer there, it was lovely. And there was this group of people. It was actually very funny. You get people who are forward thinking, and then you get people who sort of get stuck in a mold. And there was this one woman, and she made these little banners, and she would sit in a meeting like this, and she would make this little banner: ban oil, ban plastic, go vegetarian. And then this one guy made a little banner, and he said, think. And of course, at that stage, it sort of came apart. And the whole thing about going vegetarian, we are consuming far more animal protein than is needed. Especially here in Africa, in South Africa, we are spoiled with animal proteins. But we can't really go vegetarian, because if we all go vegetarian, that figure would more than double. And we don't have this one that says human fecal matter 2.1 times 10 to the power of 12 tons per annum. That's substantial. It would double. And because of the high fiber content of that, we won't have sewage systems to actually utilize that. So be careful. Please don't all go vegetarian, all right? Then if we look at the slaughter waste, the ruminants, of course, they've got huge stomachs, which contain a lot of fiber content. That's a substantial tonnage per year. And then monogastrics, which are far more. We eat a lot more chicken and pigs and fish than we do cows and goats and all of those. Also, so you can imagine that there's a lot there. Then my favorite, my water issue. I've done something wrong here. Where's the water now? The water. 1 billion people don't have safe water. We have to water our crops. We have to water our animals. And we need water to wash down the factories. You know, everything we eat, we take it to a factory and we package it. We wash it, and then we package it. So that needs a lot of water. Then there's trapped water. This is the funny water. That's all the water trapped inside of us. You know, right now we are this many people. In a little while we're going to be 2 or 3 or 4 times that. Each one of us contains a lot of water. Because we are all these people on this earth, we are terrified of running out of food. So we are canning food. We are sealing food, we are freezing food. All of that contains water. Then we create a lot of waste, and that waste lies in dumps, and it contains a lot of water. I received some lab analysis back today of the food waste from the Nielsen. 70% water. We take that and we put it on a compost heap. It takes 8 months to break down. 70% water lying there, dirty water lying there. So other than the water that we need, there's this trapped water, which we can't really calculate at this stage, which we don't see. So that water has to come out again. That water has to get back into the water cycle. Now, why insects? The nutritional composition. Chickens don't hatch with feet to swim and catch fish. They've got claws to scratch and eat insects. They were made that way. Our pigs, our animals, our fish are scavengers, and they've been eating insects since forever. All right, so the nutritional composition, if you look at the amino acid composition of these insects, it is so close to what we as humans require to what Nile tilapia require, to what broilers require, to what layer hens require, to what pigs require, to what trout require. It's so close to that. That the stresses that the body would have, if you consume protein, the body takes that proportion that it needs, and the rest has to be excreted. And nitrogen excretion is very expensive in terms of metabolism, energy metabolism, and the liver and the kidneys and stuff like that. And because it fits closer, the stress on the body to get rid of that extra nitrogen is much less. So because it fits, your efficiency of production is much higher. Your production potential is so much more. They are highly efficient. Their feed conversion ratios are that of monogastrics and better. And better. They don't use a lot of water. You don't have to put out a little container with water and say, "Kom, goggas kan drink." You know, they get most of the water from the food. And what's nice is, there's only a few species that produce greenhouse gases. Some of the termites which live underground, and they produce greenhouse gases, methane, because of they grow fungus which produces methane. And then there's one or two other ones. But the things that we mass rear don't produce methane. They do produce water vapor, which is a greenhouse gas, but it's in the atmosphere for 9 days. Then it's clouds, and then it's rain, and then we've got water again. They do produce carbon dioxide, but I'd rather have carbon dioxide than methane. And they do produce, if you raise them on abattoir waste, high protein waste, you do get ammonia. But they put scrubbers in the factories, and then they actually harvest the ammonia, and they can harvest the carbon dioxide again, and they put that in your beer and your cool drink. And historically, insects have been used long before we actually farmed with animals intensively. The insects were used for raising animals. The first farmers used insects to raise animals. And even if you read the Bible, you will see that the people ate grasshoppers and honey, wild honey and grasshoppers, and they survived on it, and were quite happy on that. The production potential of this. I just took black soldier flies in a continuous system, black soldier flies in a batch system, Chrysomycloropaga in a batch system, and soybean. Just look at the bottom line. This one, dry matter yield ton per hectare per annum. 1,825 tons per hectare per year versus 4.5 for soya. If you look at Chrysomycloropaga, this one is one that eats protein, so it eats up all the abattoir waste, that's very wasteful. And BSF in a batch system, 3.3 tons. This is in a single layer. This is if I were to farm them on the stable. People don't care what we do to insects. You know, we doom them, all right? So we can stack them in factories, 20 trays, 50 trays deep. The factory that they've just built, I think they are 20 trays deep. So you multiply that by 20, so you're talking about 60,000 tons per hectare per year. It's senseless not to think of it. So the concept is, we went and we looked at the naturally waste-consuming organisms. We literally went and we put out waste and we collected the insects which came to it. All right? Then we looked at the waste, we looked at the insects. Then we went out into the Western Cape and we collected waste from all the food factories. We analysed that. We analysed the insects. We looked at the enzyme systems in the insect. We looked at what the waste looked like. And then it's very simple. We just marry the two. You know, just marry the two, and then they will break down the waste, and you can harvest the protein in the end. So we harvest them, we render them, so we take the fat out. The insects produce a lot of fat because they need that for metamorphosis. So we harvest the protein and the fat, and when we harvest them, we get the chitin, which is the exoskeletons. We use that for making cholesterol medication. We use that for harvesting heavy metals out of contaminated water. We use it for harvesting uranium from the seabed to make power plants. We use it for a number of things, all right? Then the enzymes, we actually started a project on the enzymes and the peptides now, a PhD project. The enzymes, especially the coniferous ones, we harvest that, and you've all heard about the maggot treatment for wounds. No? You've seen that, and it's very yucky if you think there's a worm chowing you. So what we do is we actually harvest the enzymes, make an ointment of it, and they use that for treating diabetic ulcers. And instead of people having limbs amputated because of that, you actually get the opportunity to heal the wound, and then the person can become economically active again. Especially in Africa, where diabetes is a creeping disease that kills many people, puts a lot of stress on households. That works well. The oil, we thought the oil would go into biodiesel. No. The cosmetic industry is taking up the oil because it's so high in antioxidants. So the cosmetic industry is waiting for the oil to be refined. And then the peptides from these organisms are antimicrobial. So we're looking at multi-drug resistant bacteria, looking at that. Some of the peptides have got anti-tumor characteristics, and some of them have got anti-inflammatory characteristics. So we're working with biochemistry and identifying these peptides and then purifying it. We started with a protein project. It looks as if protein would end up being the byproduct, with all the other products being the valuable products. We spoke about the mechanism. Now the organisms that we started off with, the ordinary housefly, Musca domestica, and then Lucilia sericata, which is the green bottle, you know, that very irritating one if you boil cabbage or something, that's the first one in the house, that one. Chrysomycloropaga, which is the copper bottom blowfly. It's a huge, actually very pretty fly. And then Hermetia illucens, which is the black soldier fly, which is a very friendly, sort of almost useless fly. There's the pictures. There's the housefly, you all know that. That one you all probably know as well. This one over here, it doesn't look very nice now, but it's got a very nice pattern on its back, and it's got a coppery behind, which makes it very easy to distinguish. And that's a fly. It's camouflaged as a wasp because it's the only protection it has. And people are scared of it. If it flies around, people are scared of it because it looks like a wasp, but it's a fly. And it doesn't eat in its mature phase. All these other eat in its mature phase. That one doesn't eat in its mature phase. It's not a pest species. It will not come into your house. It's also called the window-waisted fly because if you catch it, you'll see it's got a little window on its tummy. And that's if it's newly emerged, that it's green and it's full. And if it's laid the eggs, it's empty because it doesn't eat in its mature phase. It's physically empty. And that's the window-waisted fly, or the black soldier fly. It's just the life cycle that's of the housefly, but that's basically the life cycle of all the species. The adult fly will lay the eggs will hatch into larvae, the larvae will turn into pupa, and they will become flies again. For the housefly, it looks like that. The eggs are extremely, extremely small. The larvae aren't very big of the housefly, and the pupa, they turn into pupa quite fast, and the metamorphoses are very quickly. So if you want to harvest them at a stage where you've got a lot of nutrients, you actually have to harvest them when they are larvae before they become pupa. The problem with them is they're quite difficult to harvest. So we developed a harvesting method. But because it was quite difficult and quite expensive, we carried on to another species, which was Lucilia. I didn't put Lucilia in here. I focused on this one. This is the one that's being commercialized now. This is the most acceptable fly species to farm with because it's not a pest species. As Jason said the other day, you know, put up a fly farm, and someone in Pretoria will find a fly in his kitchen and he will phone you because it's your fly. Right. So if you farm with the pest flies, then you are at risk that people will start blaming you for putting flies into the environment. So this fly is more friendly than an earthworm. Unfortunately, it dies of pesticides very easily. So you probably wouldn't see them in your house and outside, or in your compost heap. You probably would see the larvae in your compost heap, but you won't see them. They are very poor flyers, and they won't fly if the wind blows. And so they're actually a sorry excuse for being a fly. But they are extremely prolific, and they can change 100 kilos of waste into about 10 kilos of larva protein. You'll have about 10 kilos of compost remaining, and the rest is water vapor, and carbon dioxide. that comes off, and they generate a lot of heat. We actually, in the factory, they use the heat which the larvae produce to heat up the breeders again. So it's a total recirculation. That's what the fly cages looks like. So the breeding colonies in there. We keep about 5 million flies in a cage, which is approximately the size. We collect the eggs. They lay eggs 10 o'clock in the morning, or they make 10 o'clock in the morning. They lay eggs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we don't know why yet, but that's the way it works. It's coupled to the intensity of the light. So it's coupled to the sunshine, after they emerge, it's 2 days for them to get sexually mature. They mate. 2 days later, the eggs will be ripe. They lay the eggs. 4 days later, the eggs hatch. They grow for 19 days. We harvest them, and then the whole cycle starts over again. And in that time, they can break down large quantities of waste. The factory in Philippi will receive 100 tons, 110 tons of waste per day, which will be broken down using these. That's just their mating. And there they are laying eggs. They will lay eggs in any little tube or container, from straws right through to cardboard and all of that. The eggs are yellow masses like that. They will lay eggs anywhere they find a spot where they can stick them onto. We hatch them, and after they've hatched, we grow them out. They are very small. When they hatch, you actually can't see them, but they weigh almost 2 grams by the time that they are fully grown. And that is what they look like when we harvest them at the end. We harvest them earlier now because when they turn brown, the chitin content is high and the fat content is low. So we harvest them at the stage just before this now, when they are still white. Chitin content is low, fat content is high, and they are much more valuable. We also use them in a community interaction program, and this might be of value for your... Can't go back now. Ja, ek is te vinnig vir hom. Is ek ver weg? Ek kan hierdie Mac. Is nog op Windows, ek is nie op Mac nie. Ons op community interaction prentjie nou. Ek soek net my community interaction prentjie nou, waar is hy? As ons hy. Nou moet die letters net weggaan, daar is hy. Perfect. So this is a community action project. We had it in Klipjewil, and it's expanded to Natal now, the municipality of KwaZulu-Natal, somewhere in Natal. I didn't pass geography. They are actually, they're actually utilizing this process now. It's a very simple process where, because the people don't have flush toilets in many of the communities, the fecal matter gets taken out, and they use the larvae to break it down. They collect all the kitchen waste in the area as well, peelings of potatoes and whatever, any waste food. Together with the fecal matter, the larvae break it down. The larvae gets harvested. It goes into poultry, into layer hens for eggs and meat production. The soil or the remainder of the compost goes into vegetable gardens. And at first we were very concerned about the whole food safety issue around that. We just completed an MSc on that, and there's no contamination whatsoever that remains in the final products. Not the meat, not the eggs, not the fertilizer that remains. So in this project they use the larvae as is. They actually feed live larvae to the hens in the process. And you can even take it onto a worm bin and take it on further on if you want to. But this project works very well, and the community in Klipjewil had a lot of value from this. The other one, Crassamara chloropega, the blowfly. It's actually a very handsome fly, and it's a big fly. It's easy to identify. It's a carnivore. It's a carnivore, so we use it for breaking down protein. So any high protein waste that we have, we use that to break it down. It's a pest species. It will come into your house. It will come sit on your sandwich. So if you farm this, you have to make very sure that your biosecurity is in place. The same biosecurity measures that you have on a chicken farm, you will have here. So you will have single entry. You will have blowers keeping the flies in or keeping the wild flies out. You also don't want wild flies in because they carry disease. It's a commercial farm. The same biosecurity rules that you have there. From 100 kilos of abattoir waste, I don't know if any of you have seen abattoir waste in your life. It's not nice, you don't want to see it, it's gross. So from 100 kilos of that waste, you will yield about 7 to 15 kilos of larvae, depending on how much stomach content the abattoir waste contains. You'll have about 10 to 15 kilos of residue. The nice thing about this residue is you can feed it to the black soldier flies. So nothing remains. Nothing remains once these guys are done with it. You've got water coming off, lots of water vapor coming off because it's protein that you're working with, it's mainly water. Carbon dioxide and ammonia, and you can actually harvest the carbon dioxide and ammonia from this process. That's your fly cages that we keep them in, also 5 million per cage. That's them laying eggs. We let them lay eggs on liver, or you know these squeegee cloths that you use in the kitchen? Soak them in blood and roll them up that they look a little roll, and they will fill that whole thing with eggs. It's amazing to see how much eggs a cage like that can lay up to 200-300 grams of eggs. It's amazing, we didn't think it was possible, but yes it is. So then we stack them high up. All right, there's some abattoir waste there in the bottom. You can see the eggs in there. So you have about half a gram of eggs on about 15 kilos of abattoir waste in a tray like that. And then they will eat it all up. That's the babies. All those little white ones are baby, young larvae. And then when they are nice and big, then they will crawl off and they will fall over the side, and we collect them in large basins. And that's what your end product looks like. Nice and white and clean. And that's the nice thing about these and the black soldier flies, they crawl off themselves. So you can either take them out physically, sieve them out, or you can just wait for them and they'll crawl off. In the factory, of course, they harvest them because you can't wait for them, they're too slow. So you take them out. So we said the nutritional composition is excellent. The amino acid, the proximate analysis, they contain protein and fat and some chitin, which we pick up as fiber. The amino acid composition is excellent, we said that. Fatty acids, the nice thing about this is we can actually change the fatty acid composition because they are monogastric animals. We are busy with a trial now where we fortify the larvae with omega-3s. And from there they go into trout production and catfish production. So that trial's running and we've had excellent results on that. Some of the stuff that comes from fish factories can't be used for fish meal either. And that's a waste from a fish factory. So we're feeding that to the larvae. We're actually harvesting the omega-3s from there, feeding it to the larvae, and then the larvae is high in omega-3s, which we need for the fish production again. Digestibility, some instances as high as 96%. It's very high digestibility. We've looked at the protein characteristics for processing. We've made some Viennas for human consumption. We've had them on pizza. We've made some energy bars, some protein spreads like peanut butter, you know, something like that, from different types of insects. And it works excellent. We can use it as a meat replacer for vegetarians. The vegetarians are allowed to eat it. The vegetarians come and fetch my mealworms constantly. I really struggle to keep up with the mealworms. And the nice thing about so we've made the Viennas. We struggled a bit with the color, and we can replace a lot of the soya with it. Soya is full of allergens, and soya is full of anti-nutrients, and it plays havoc in the digestive system of many people. So you can take the soya out and you can actually have a highly digestible protein source which doesn't contain any allergens or anti-nutrients. It's highly palatable. At first, you know, if someone says eat a bug, I don't think so. And then later on you sort of get used to it, and they do taste very nice. And if you do palatability studies with animals, dogs, cats, of course your primates, your monkeys, all of them love it. Birds, any of our animals, any of the animals that can actually taste have a preference for insects. And if you compare it with pigs, if you use pigs for a palatability study, they taste very similar. You know, they've got the same taste profile as we do. They adore it, so it works very well. Product development, I said we've developed a number of products, and we've got a food science MSc finishing now on product development on there. Consumer acceptance is the one thing which is difficult in a Western nation. Insects is not a famine food. Insects is a food of choice for something like 80% of the world's people. 80% of the world eat insects. It's just us Westerners who sort of, ooh, you know, it's got 6 legs. Do you eat crayfish? It's got more legs. Do you eat prawns? They've also got more legs. And they are actually just the insects of the sea. We don't have insects in the sea, but they do the same job in the sea as what the insects do here. If you look at the biomass of insects, If we take out all life in the world that we can see and we just leave insects, we'll still have more biomass than what we took out. So what we can't see in terms of biomass, in terms of the insect, it's phenomenal. It's amazing to see how much protein, how much life we have, which we don't see, and we've neglected it. We've sort of not looked at it. I went to an entomology conference in 2011, all hyped up. I'm going to tell these entomologists about farming with insects. And I got there and I attended 449 lectures on how to kill insects. And I presented one lecture on how to farm with insects, and everyone was like... The last lecture we went to, we had a whole workshop, the last conference, which was now, we had a whole workshop, 1.5 days on mass rearing of insects. So from 2011 to 2015, there's been a substantial change. And we're not just looking at killing them, we're actually looking at farming them. So that's very nice. Consumer acceptance, it's all about how you present it. Would you eat the chicken that ate maggots? No. Very simple. But would you eat the chicken which actually ate its natural food? Yes. So it's all about presenting it. It's how you educate and how you present the people that would give you an idea. We spoke about the byproducts. Biomedical, the enzymes for the treatment of diabetic ulcers, anti-tumor, antibiotic, anti-inflammatory. From the chitin we can make biodegradable plastics. The filters for harvesting heavy metals and for getting uranium from the seabed for our power plants. We spoke about that. Now I want to tell you to think again. Look at our chickens of the bug world. Right? Just think of chickens, the eggs and the meat. And we're thinking of those. You've got breeders, you've got a hatchery, you grow them out and you harvest them. Those are the chickens. We balance, we formulate diets for them. They eat the food we formulate for them. They don't have to eat just waste. And you can actually farm them and harvest them. And you can look at, there's just a summary of how we farm the black soldier fly, how we farm the copper button blowfly. Look at the cows and the sheep of the bug world. We've got crickets and we've got grasshoppers. Take off the legs and the wings, and it looks like a little shrimp or a prawn. They taste like, these guys taste like macadamia nuts. Those guys taste like pecan nuts. They are really very nice and they work excellently in salads, stir fries, anything like that. Once you've tasted it, you would eat them again and again and again. All right, it's just a mental thing. Just get over it. Just think again. Just think again. The pigs of the bug world. These guys eat the fibrous compounds. It's the mealworms and the superworms. Mealworms, excellent. They are rather expensive in South Africa. Rather expensive. You pay about, I think it's 1,700 Rand a kilo at this stage for mealworms. And you can buy them in Kaap Agri, in little 80-gram packets dried. And they're like 100 Rand for a little packet. So the people who are farming with them now, making big bucks, and they're really easy to farm with. I farm them in the kitchen for my pet monkey. And whatever is extra I throw to the birds outside. They're really easy to farm. The superworms, slightly more difficult, and they are a bit problematic. The minute you kill insects, just like if you, I don't know who you hunt, you know, if you hunt and you shoot a kudu or a impala or whatever outside, you've got to take the stomach out because else it goes into the meat. Exactly the same with these guys, but a kudu or an impala you can actually see and you can take out the intestines. With these guys it's slightly difficult. So what you do is you would purge them, so you would leave them without feed for about 3 hours and the gut would be empty, but the enzymes would still be there. So when you kill them, you have to actually inactivate the enzymes. You can do that with heat, you can do that with cold, you can, depending on the type of insect, depending on the enzymes present. These guys are quite easy during purging, after purging to inactivate the enzymes using heat, but those guys turn black and they become very unattractive and unpalatable once they've turned black. And some people even reckon that they might become toxic when they turn black on the enzymes. So they are difficult, they're huge. I don't know if any of you have seen superworms. They're about that long and they half, I've got a big finger, but half of that. So, but the mealworms are quite easy and the mealworms are very palatable. So that's our pigs of the bug world. Then our other pigs are our roaches. These ones down here, the giant hissing cockroach. I don't know if any of you have seen them. I wanted to bring some of them this afternoon, and I couldn't find bottles to put them in. Someone cleaned out my lab while I was away, and I couldn't find bottles. So these are big, they're about that size. These are all live bearers, so they have live babies. They will have about 13 to 15 babies once a month. You don't want them in your house. Blaptica, that's the dubia cockroach. They're slightly smaller. They have about 25 babies once a month. And then those down there, they are really the Cape Redhead. It's a horrible thing. They actually live here in the Cape. That's where their name, the Cape Redhead, comes from. They're small, and it's very difficult to contain them. So it's not really a species with which you would farm. These guys don't climb at all, so you can keep them in a container on your table. They won't climb out. These guys will climb right up to the middle of the ceiling and fall on you if you don't expect it. The ones up there, looks like a common cockroach. Also a live bearer. Excellent in production. These ones, although they belong to the group of cockroaches, they are not the dirty cockroach that runs on the carpet. They are actually the ones that you would find in forests, living in the same area that you would find your earthworms. So they'd be eating fallen leaves and stuff like that. They don't live in drains and stuff like that. If they actually come out, they will die because they don't have the food. If they should live in your house, if they should come out in your house, they would die because they don't have fallen leaves and stuff to eat. So although they look, people say, quite horrible, they won't cause trouble to you. These are the egg layers. They lay little egg pods. And the egg pods will take about 10 to 14 days to hatch, depending on the temperature and the environment. And of course, they lay large quantities. They can lay an egg pod a day, and each egg pod will contain 14 babies. So they are quite prolific, but they are not that big. And lateralis, this one that you see here, we harvest them before they get the wings. And they've got excellent protein quality for producing protein meals. For these protein shakes, you know, the guys who go to gym, it's those guys that we'll put in your gym shakes. Huh? So, so the question why? The question is actually why not? That's my pet monkey, and she is our first level of sensory approval for any products that we make. Her name is Poppy. And that's just the number of the funders. Stellenbosch University, of course, basically through patients, because sometimes the bugs do get out, and then people get very sensitive about that. The London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, we worked with them on the sanitation project. Bear Valley Ventures, in collaboration with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We worked there, and then Sanitation Ventures and AgriProtein is the main funder of the project up to here.
Thank you very much.